guys.
So how this all started, I'm going to Ursula was interested. I've been at Corrales now 6 years in reviving our wetlands, which unfortunately I didn't get to, we're hoping to revive them, but so she was interested in doing that. And our principal, Ursula wrote a grant, which I guess didn't get accepted. And then our principal wrote a grant. And so now we've got some money coming in for supplies, which is going to be awesome. So Ursula and I have worked together, but we haven't really like collaborated as much as we are now. We're pretty much teaming and collaborating. And I work with first, second, third, and Ursula works with fourth and fifth. And so then we got to talking because Ursula's done like a naturalist study in the past. And she said, would you be interested? And I said, yes, very much so. So that's how it all kind of started. And Ursula, I'll let you talk a little bit about your philosophy and what you want to say.
Well, that could take forever. But we have a really nice wetlands at Corrales, and it used to be the water reclamation for the whole school. But then the village put in sewage, and the state mandated that all commercial businesses, including the school, hook up to that sewage. So our wetlands stopped being a priority for APS. So we were trying to figure out how to keep the wetlands alive and doing activity grants and stuff. And we also have a really active Master Gardeners chapter that works with our 5th grade weekly. So when Nancy and I were trying to figure out how to do online stuff and not add on more screen time for school-wide enrichment and gifted, the whole naturalist study seemed like a really good fit, especially in Corrales. And since we're trying to revive our wetlands anyway, so it could be multi-year. But the hook for us this year was that it was a way that if kids were totally fried with being online too much, all the asynchronous stuff sends them outside. So it's all, and we could find justification for and give it to the teachers for all the drawing and writing and introspection and study that being a naturalist entails anyway. So the baseline is the school-wide enrichment, and that's being part of the naturalist classroom. And we have over 150 kids hooked into it. We don't really have a way of knowing how much each of them are doing, but it really doesn't matter. If it's serving a need for them, they can come and go. The floor is low and the ceiling is high. And then we have the gifted program that's sort of on top of it. And that includes I do 4th and 5th. So that includes studying some naturalists like John Muir. And I have my kids do read alouds, and we put them in a library in the enrichment classroom. So anybody who's using the classroom can watch the kids from the gifted program reading aloud a John Muir story, or they're all nature-oriented stories. So it's like Keepers of the Earth. I used all those, and John Muir, and also we got this really good book written by John Muir's son, is How to Teach Nature Journaling, and that was a lot of the inspiration too. So my gifted stuff is just a layer on top of the school-wide enrichment, which is accessible to everybody. And I have kids who want to be in gifted who didn't qualify, who will bring themselves to the gifted program. It doesn't bother me. Show up. You want to do the work.
So I kind of, so for the younger students, I'm starting to read from Can You Hear the Trees Talking, their articles, and the students will be doing the same. They're working together in groups to, I'm going to record them and post them in the enrichment classroom. So we've been advertising, are you interested in learning more about trees? And they have to illustrate it and be creative and make sure they know their parts. And then we'll do the readings, and people can log into that. So we just work together, but at different levels. And we have meetings that are open to whoever wants to come, and the gifted kids are required by me to be there. But then we have other kids showing up too. We do a lot of advertising. You know, we kind of are promoting it this year, getting it out there. And so if kids are interested, they'll bring their friends. They'll say, oh, this is really cool. And I've been fortunate enough, the teachers have let me do the science. They can either come to me at science time or what is it, mystery science? I always want to say discovery science. They can choose to either work with that program or with me. And it seems like I've got a large third grade group. The younger students are still a little worried about branching out. I think they want to stick with what their teacher, puts on the schedule. But we find as they get older, they do come of their own free will to participate. So
yeah, and Nancy and I started to just bypass teachers after a while. We advertise it on Dojo, and now that kids know the platform, they'll just bring themselves.
Right.
And right now, just lately, a little group of them have formed their own conservation club, and we open their own classroom for them to run and set meetings, invite other kids to their conservation clubs, and they're going to write letters and do public service announcements. And that is completely kid driven and not in any way required, or their teachers don't even really know about it.
Right. And so for nature journaling, we both do that Tuesdays and Thursday afternoons. That's open to all also. And what's happened with me, I was just kind of blown away. I had these kids that are very interested, and they're real diehards, and they come. And I was telling Ursula, so later I look back at, their placements for the beginning of the year. It just blew me away because some of these kids have been labeled as like lower level kids. But when they get in there and they're so into nature and science and everything it has to offer, you should see them and hear them. I mean, I would have never guessed that they are supposedly a lower reader, or that they supposedly don't function at a very high level. It just blows me away. I'm like, wow, some of these kids will come with all this information and lead the class and bring things and teach us, and it just blows me away. It's been that's what's been wonderful about this whole thing, is just if they're interested and they bring themselves, they rise to the occasion, and you would really have no clue, where they're at. So
it's like all the old standardized testing. Our kids always score higher on science than anything else. If you're really going to do data-driven instruction, it should all be science, really, because they're interested in it. And that's proving itself in school-wide enrichment. You allow them to come, and they'll show up with their big collections, and they talk, and they're different kids. But we really work hard to foster that in gifted and school-wide enrichment, the unloaded classroom, where you're not working for a grade or anything. I tell kids right off, I don't give you grades. I'll give you feedback. but I'm not grading you. You're this kind of student or you're not. And that's okay. Whatever.
Now, Ursula, how many kids do you guys have in your school total?
Well, we used to have 370, but I think we're down to like 300.
Okay, so half of your school is attending one of your, okay.
Right,
So,
right.
could you explain to them how how the classroom, the technical parts, like how are the classrooms set up? How many do you have? What are your hours that you're seeing them, so that they know more kind of the technical setting up piece of how you guys work it. And I know you started on Mondays and all that, so if you wouldn't mind doing that.
We're a classroom called School-Wide Enrichment, and we put that code out almost every day at the beginning of the year and said anybody can come. And then we post modules in there that are thematic and have activities to do in your nature journal and outside. And the themes are like, we did bird migration, and right now it's geology, fossils and rocks. And Nancy and I built these front page slides. It opens with a slide and it's kind of a Bitmoji nature walk. And they can click on something and it takes them to a link and a video about whatever the theme is that week. And then every day there's an activity that goes with that. And none of those activities are necessarily online. It's all going outside. And the daily habit is to write in your nature journal, to spend 30 minutes with your nature journal every day. And we have, it's a formula that we taught them to write. As I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of, so they're doing that thinking and analogy, that scientific thinking. And we added, I'm grateful for, to try and also build in the gratitude journal and the efficacy and self-esteem, because that was becoming kind of an issue with online. And, they're lonely. That's one thing, is Nancy and I have a really hard time ending our classes because they never want to leave.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if, so if you wanted to see kind of the framework, I wonder if you guys could join. I think you could easily join our Google Classroom just to see. We have virtual field trips on there. We have parent resources. Ursula put a bunch of art projects that are related. The readings from the older kids are on there. The readings for my kids will be there. And then the module assignments. And for me, I do those for science with the younger students. Like I said, they have a choice of coming to me during their science time. And I actually do those live with them. The older students pretty much just access it on their own. But if you join our Google Classroom, you'd be able to see what we're talking about. So,
and we don't actually assign anything. We just post it as material.
Right.
So that they don't get it on an assignment list and freak out, because we kind of had that happen at the beginning of the year and changed everything to just material.
Right.
And then separately, we each have a small group classroom. It's like, well, I think of it as like at our school, we have a STEAM den that Nancy and I built, because we're perpetually trying to figure out how to provide enrichment. And so that's the enrichment room, the STEAM den. And then we have our own classrooms. And that's how it works virtually too, is we have that enrichment room that we work together and maintain, and anybody can come to. And then we have our little pull-out classrooms where I meet kids for math and ELA and we still do Latin and regular gifted stuff.
Right. And I do the first part of the year with the younger ones, I focused on math only, and then nature journaling and science, which is optional. If they're in gifted, they have to come to the math and science. And then this semester, I'm focusing on ELA, and then again, nature journaling, and then science. And so that's pretty much how I do it. And so they're still getting that. But yeah, so what we could do is I think we could just invite you guys, right? If we type your names in, then you'll pop up and we can invite you. The code is BOLIODY. Looks like Boliody.
That's
Easy
hard.
to remember. Yeah.
BOLODY.
IODY.
Okay.
Right. And then we could just yeah, we can just send it to you guys. I'm going to write everybody's names down so that we can invite you guys.
And then we have that one of the hardest things was scheduling around general ed teachers.
Right.
So perpetual struggle, but I just opened 2 sections a day for each grade level, and then they come to the one that works for them. And I can do that because I have 4th and 5th graders. They're amazingly flexible.
Right.
Is that mostly, are your classes in the afternoon?
I have a morning section and an afternoon section.
Okay. All right. So it's not always during asynchronous learning.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Right. I had to work around my teachers. They I had to get their buy-in, and they kind of told me what times would work. So I do science at 1 o'clock on Thursdays with first graders. Tomorrow I'll be doing science in the morning with second and then with third. And then I meet most mornings for my language arts. And then we both do nature journaling Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2:30. So they know they can go to a meeting with Ursula, or if they're younger, with me.
Although Cam came to my meeting today to.
Oh, did he? Oh, that's
so they're
good.
starting to figure out when Nancy and I have meetings and show up to anyone they want to.
Right. Sometimes I get some of Ursula's students that I've had in the past, and they'll click on and say, oops, and then they'll stay. But I'll say, stay, that's fine. And I'll start asking, I'll have them kind of lead the kids. And, the younger kids love that. So we get a lot of mixed going on too.
And that, that's an important piece of the school-wide enrichment, like what you guys are doing, the enrichment cluster, is that sort of cross grade level. It's one of the few times they get to experience that. So it's fantastic that you guys are so open to having older and younger kids together, because they learn so much from each other, and they learn, more importantly, the social skills that they need to work in a group like that. So that's really something to remember, Teo, when you guys are thinking about what you want to do. It doesn't have to be grade level based. It's actually better if it's cross level. So, yeah.
I always think of it as, and I start my nature journal class with, we're going on a nature walk behind the school all together. And what I have them draw is something that we would see. I go back behind my school and take pictures, or steal pictures from the Audubon people in Corrales. But I have everybody giving me their pictures of porcupines that they see in Corrales, and kind of just, it really is where we live and our environment. And if we were at school, we'd be taking nature walks and sitting in our wetlands. And and then kindergarten, we have offered to come in and do lessons once in a while. And our principal, who's also teaching kindergarten, takes us up on that. So we go in, she tells us what their working on, and we'll go in with, like, this week was fossils,
Right.
last week was minerals, and be their guest teacher for half an hour, which is probably the best way to integrate it with kindergarten.
Yeah, I
Right.
think Kinder, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Even
with
if
Kinder
school
pushing
doesn't
in
want
is
to come out.
definitely the best. Yeah, they can't.
Even first grade, for me, their teachers said, we don't know what kind of turnout you'll have, but here's an open time. And I do have some diehards coming, and but they normally don't show up on their own to nature journaling, but they're with me at least once a week. So that works out. And that you know,
Nancy and I are lucky because our school is small. They all know us. We have lunch duty every day. So all of our students know us. So it's not a just cold sell.
right.
And lab has a really good reputation at our school. And we have always called all special ed lab at Corrales. So everybody goes to their lab, right? And it's not until like 5th grade that they figure out, oh, it's good.
Yeah, this is something different, right?
And
so,
our
sorry, go ahead.
Our special ed team is good. We all work together. I'm head teacher. They don't know who teaches what at our school. So we kind of try to foster a situation where kids can access the adult that they click with pretty easily at Corrales.
And you have, do you still have your little guy who's in special ed that showed up every single day for you?
Oh, Wiggy? No,
Yeah.
he came until well, see, that's when we lost a 4th grade teacher. And then one of the teachers that both Nancy and I have that gifted the real hard sell with her. He took over that class and he stopped coming.
So he's not, yeah. And then Nancy has this darling little girl. She sends me her videos and they just make me laugh so hard.
Yeah,
they're so cute.
She's one of the first graders,
Yeah,
and
so cute.
Those first graders are amazing. The ones that have chosen to come are really dedicated and will go above and beyond. So that's been interesting.
Yeah. So Taya and Sandra and Christine, this is one really interesting way to approach school-wide enrichment because they have a school-wide theme, which I think is just super cool. And it doesn't often happen that we've seen in our research and how what we've seen in the district, that 2 teachers are able to coordinate this just so beautifully for that many kids. To have 50% of your population involved in some way is really a tribute to you guys. It's pretty impressive. So thinking about a theme at Bandelier that you guys might be able to tackle, do you have any questions or comments about what, how you could, is this something that's appealing to you guys, thinking in terms of your school population, your school location, that type of thing?
Yeah, so as you know, our teachers have been kind of resistant to wanting to do the whole cluster.
Yeah.
And it's just, it gets approached every year and then it kind of gets like swept under the table. And so last year in the spring, they kind of made a commitment to doing it twice a month for an hour. And the teachers felt more comfortable doing it kind of as grade level. So that is what was discussed in the spring. And then of course we continued with the online setting and that felt really cumbersome. So it's been one of those things that just has been hard to get the ball going. And so I had spoken with the IC and had talked about that, and they're like, and they expressed how I guess, stressful it felt for them. And I said, they said, well, how are other schools doing it? And of course, I had come to that SEM meeting where you guys had presented before and was just like, oh, I thought what you guys were doing was wonderful. And it was so cool. And I was so intrigued and it was so neat. And I said, well, one example I can think of off the top of my head is Corrales has a classroom where they do like a nature study, and they go outside and they look at the nature around them, and they look at a section of their school that has, we don't have a wetlands, but we have like a garden, and they look at that section in the school and they see how it's intermingles and works with the ecosystem around them, and just started talking about that. And I think when I explained that to the teachers within that group, it started to not feel so overwhelming. Like, wait a minute, you could just do one classroom where that was open to the whole school, that was on a specific topic, and then those kids could come to it. So then they started getting a little more excited and said, oh, you guys could do a classroom on this, or you could do a classroom on this. And then if we had resources, we could post those resources, or we could help out, or we could talk to it. So they started, and that was cool because it was the first time all year that I'd seen them start to kind of get excited about the idea of SEM. So,
ours is minimal teacher commitment. It's all kid choice. And the one thing teachers can do is allow their kids to trade it out for mystery science, which some teachers will do and some won't. But even those teachers who won't trade it out, we have kids attending school-wide enrichment. And I think part of it is because it's meaningful. It's their backyard. But
what is mystery science? Sorry,
God, it's game show science that the district. It's not even science. It's like, why are flamingos pink?
Oh, okay.
I call it a online science worksheet page or something.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The district, I guess, is pushing it, and some of the teachers love it because I think it gives them a grade, and they have assignments due. Yeah,
and it'll generate data.
Right?
So it's not meaningful data, but it's data.
Yeah. Okay.
But some of our teachers do let them trade it out, and the kids are into that. They will. And you could do a nature study anywhere. I think would be really neat at one of the schools that doesn't have such access to just put a bowl of water out and see what happens. Put a bird feeder out on the corner.
Where our school's located it's kind of closer to the airport. And
I subbed at Bandelier
30
years ago.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because the one thing that I've noticed just as an Albuquerque resident for basically my whole life is that as the city pushes outward, we're pushing on those wildlife boundaries. And so we see more of the wildlife coming into the city. So I feel like I see more road runners in our neighborhood than before. And we've now had coyotes in our neighborhood a couple of times.
Wow.
And yeah, I know. And like the other night, my husband saw a fox on the fence. Like,
whoa,
wow.
So I think that I think part of that is because there is the airport that has that more open space, and there's the base, the base that has a lot of open land, and there's an arroyo that runs down from the Four Hills area. And so I think those animals live in that area, but then sometimes they wander further, and so and there's good resources relatively close in the neighborhood too. So some good.
Join the Albuquerque Audubon just for ideas, because there's a lot of people around in town and that already do nature studies and nature journaling and stuff. And then hook into the APS Mountain School. That's a good start, which Nancy and I didn't find until recently, but there's a lot of stuff out there. Rio Grande Nature Center.
Yeah. So what, I mean, what comes to my mind, Taya, for like you guys is the, you know, the forced migration of animals, the forced change of their ecosystem, the arroyo, the water, you know, how does the water run?
Adaptation. Your whole theme
Yeah.
should be adaptation.
Yeah, adaptation and how
cool?
water coming through, you know, how is it different than what Corrales's water is? And, you know, I just think, and kids, Ursula, you're absolutely right. Science is the
Hook.
hook for
Mhm.
almost every kid in the world.
Mhm.
I just think that if you were going to try to simplify it, Taya, that, and not that what you guys are doing is simple. I don't want you to think that, but having that one theme, especially because we've met with the Bandelier teachers quite often, and not these guys. These guys are wonderful, and their teachers are wonderful. They just are a little bit resistant to
Ours are too, though.
new ideas and change. And I think if it was just some like a single theme that really had to do with the neighborhood and adaptation and stuff, that I think that'd be super cool. It'd be one thing you could present in a brainstorming session for sure, you know.
Yeah, we had some other ideas. There was an idea of doing a photography unit, because all the kids have the iPads and the Chromebooks, so it would be
Right.
easy for kids so they could investigate photography and they could do their own photography, and it would be easy to share, that type of thing. So that was
Photography is not an end, right? Use photography as part of your nature study and not an end into itself, because you can't.
And the concern I have, at least at Bandelier, is if we do science as the hook and have them, then our general ed teachers will ask us to give grades.
to give the grades.
Oh
Yep.
yeah,
They
we resist that a lot.
And we get it because we already teach subject replacement. We do math and ELA, and anything that we ask for, they don't want enrichment. They want grades for everything.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that's our struggle.
And we've had that happen before in the past when we've done the smaller pullouts with a section of SEM kids. They said, well, the SEM time always happens to be at science. You just need to teach SEM related science material and give a grade if you're going to continue to pull these kids out during this science time.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, in some respects I understand, but at the same time,
right. So that would be my concern, is if we ask to do it instead of mystery science, they would say, well, then.
Well, don't ask them that then. Just do it like they started with, just it's enrichment. It's a choice.
Right.
The kids can come or not, you know, because I remember that from the conversation. It's all about the grades. It's all about the grades. But this is not a, you know, enrichment clusters, school-wide enrichment is not about grades.
Right.
But setting it up where, and I get then why you were talking about photography, because then that doesn't relate to any subject that they would make you, but setting it up like Ursula and Nancy have, where it's in the afternoons and the kids choose to come, teachers choose to put materials in, it's going to grow, isn't it, Nancy and Ursula?
Yeah.
And you're just going to see, it's going to start small, and then the word is going to get out. We saw it very briefly at Coronado. She started something on a Wednesday, and it lasted for 3 weeks before the district shut it down. And she went from probably 50 kids to almost 100% of the school was coming to one of the classes. So if you think in terms of a kind of a smaller, I mean, a bigger overarching theme, but just a smaller start to it, I think, you know, then you might feel those building blocks, and you guys speak to that. I'm just blabbing as usual. So
that was one thing that was brought up, was the Coronado one, because she was our vice principal last year.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was brought up. But then, of course, we had a bunch of pushback, like, well, then kids have to have the materials. And how are you going to get all the materials to everybody? And that's not really fair. And we have hard enough time getting pencils to students, or getting dirt to plant seeds. And so it's always something that,
there's always
you know what
something.
I mean?
Yeah.
They just, I mean, it was at the point where I presented and I said, this is a great way to address the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit that was going on. And of course, the something was, well, then why not just address that population? Like, shouldn't it just focus on that population? I'm like, so now you're saying that that if you're not part of that population, you shouldn't have access to this? Like,
to it, yeah.
Like, it's just, you know what I mean? It's just, there's always something.
There's always a roadblock.
We've done years where Nancy and I have provided everything. We provided the steamed in. It had all the supplies that anybody would need to facilitate. It was art or science, and they still were shitty about it. It's weird. But we just keep plugging away.
Yeah.
And we just keep telling each
we're
other.
So glad we have each other.
I know. We support each other, and we try to focus on the good times. And, you know, we sometimes get people who, you know, aren't that supportive. And I tell Ursula, like the little video I sent you, this is what we need to remember, that we're making a difference. And you know, the kids that are coming, it's making a difference. And try to shut out the negative stuff. And, you know, even if it's small, those kids are going to get something out of it in the beginning, you know. And it's
nothing else, the efficacy of being able to choose to access it on their own. That's why we advertise on Class Dojo. We definitely have some teachers who are philosophically opposed to gifted and by extension enrichment,
right.
And they somehow can justify mystery science as a meaningful addition to a kid's day.
So so Taya, like, what, and I know we've talked about this before, is, you know, again, start small and spend, you know, spend your time with the teachers who are open to it. My memory is that your second grade teachers, or was it your first grade teachers, all seem to be kind of open to listening to more, say, than the third grade teachers were. You know, just focus on those groups and it will grow. And and I think Nancy and Ursula are right. You know, you got to celebrate the small triumphs and try to block out the ones who are throwing up all those roadblocks all the time.
And the kids facilitate it, because we've been offering enrichment for years now, Nancy and I, and now we have first graders who are fourth graders who expect it. So their teachers who aren't real supportive can't say no, because these kids expect it. You know, it's part of their school reality now. And so it does grow and build and get stronger for sure. And another thing about assessment is I am really opinionated and think a lot about what I do and teaching. And I tell all the staff, you know, I'll give you, there's a rubric that I use, and Nancy uses it too, and we use it for enrichment too, and it's just effort, concept, participation, and outcome. You know, 1 to 4, what's your effort? Do you get the concept? Did you participate? And what was your outcome? And I will give teachers that information.
Me too.
Well, that's what I look at. And we also have kids keeping portfolios the best they can. It's a hard task, but it's a neat thing to learn this year. And I give their homeroom teachers access to that if they want to see what they're doing and the growth over time.
And are those, I'm sorry, to clarify, are those portfolios that you guys do, is that with the shared students that are part of the gifted, or is that with the SEM kids or everybody?
I have one for all the gifted kids, and then I ask the school-wide enrichment kids if they're interested.
Okay.
We want to keep a portfolio. And I do the same thing with the Screencastify Read Aloud library. Do you want to do a read aloud on the library? The gifted kids have to, but the school-wide enrichment kids, they can say yes or no, and they will.
Right.
They're fine with saying, no.
Some of mine that come regularly, they have asked, can I, send my work in? So they do have a portfolio, and we just created simple portfolios on Google Sites, and Ursula's kids know how to post it. Some of mine do, but otherwise they can just send it to me and I'll post it for them.
Yeah.
And so if anybody wants to see like their nature journal work, it's in that portfolio. And then we tell their teachers, that like at conferences, the student could share it for conferences, and then we use the rubric too. And so far, this conference time, everybody seemed fine with that. So
Another thing
say
that's
that's for
involved is
grade.
we have kids coming who aren't going to general ed. There are some kids who they've been taken to health and wellness because they don't go to school virtually, but they come to the nature journal meetings. So it's interesting.
Yeah, and I think, little by little, like we're still figuring this out. But it will be interesting when we're in person. It should only get better. It will be, just little steps. But I think, when we all have that human contact going again, it's really going to spread even more. So,
and we're kind of talking about how to do next year. Like maybe we could get one whole grade level total buy-in and do the nature journal with them all year. We're thinking third grade, or we're going to make 8 checkout kits for teachers who are interested. It's pretty minimal investment, like a digital camera that's $20, and the how to teach nature journaling. But if we make these sets for teachers to check out, and then we'll know who is going to do it, and then we can make time to meet with that class and revive our STEAM den and make it just the naturalist den. That's what we're thinking about for next year. So I guess, do we want to do checkout kits, or do we want to do a whole grade level focus?
We got to figure that out, or see, what people are willing to commit to.
Yeah. But we have a fairly supportive principal in that she came up through gifted programs. So she knows the value of gifted.
Yes,
always positive.
Yeah, we're lucky with that.
But that's just been the last 2 years, man. Corrales, the history of principals at Corrales is dreadful.
Yeah, it was like a revolving door. I've been there 6 years, and what have we had? 5 principals or 4?
Oh,
Yeah.
geez.
Yeah, we had we went through a bumpy spot with principals too, and I think it's finally started to settle in with what was our vice principal consistently throughout the bumpy principal ride, that she's now our principal. So she's familiar with the school and stuff, but she used to be a general ed teacher, so she tends to be a little more biased towards the general ed teachers, but sees the value of the gifted program because it does help bring in families that want to be in our school,
Yeah.
We do that sales talk all the time. Corrales has nothing extra except gifted. And even if you guys don't believe in it, you need to support it, or we have nothing.
Right. Yeah. No district programs, no, yeah, exactly.
We have no Title I.
Yeah, Bandelier doesn't do that. We don't have the Title I either, so.
Yeah. So
And
Taya, is
I
this,
used to be, most gifted teachers used to be general ed teachers. We all know how it is.
yeah,
Mhm,
yeah.
mhm.
know?
So Taya, has this been helpful? Do you have any other questions? Do you think there's, I mean, I know you'll probably process this, and then I would assume Ursula and Nancy would be open to answering
Yes,
any
if you ever
questions.
want to meet up with us, we have office hours at the end of the day a couple times a week. If you ever had questions or wanted us to brainstorm with you and or run it by us, we're happy to work with you. We are. It's actually fun for us to see this happening.
Well, and Nancy and I will get on a roll, and man, we build these great programs. They're all theoretical. So they're like, if all we did was create curriculum, it would be a magical world.
That's right.
Yeah, that's the
It would
fun
be kind of
part.
cool if Bandelier did end up doing a project that involved kind of your environment. It would be kind of cool if some of your students could come together and kind of compare what the environments look like around their homes and around
Yeah.
yours. What you're talking about. It'd be kind of cool to see how, a similar type project, what they might be able to learn from each other, even kind of putting the kids in touch would be cool too.
Yeah, that would be.
would.
Our kids would totally be into that.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think of course my head is swimming, so there's so much to take in. It helps so much that I put the code in and was able to now see your guys' classroom. So I think that will help a lot. And I I definitely, sorry, I muted myself.
Yeah.
We're blessed in that we have, multiple gifted teachers that we can also collaborate, because that's always such a blessing when you're at a school and you have somebody else that is like, wow, I have these great ideas. So I think a lot of it is just talking through and finding something that fits with Bandelier. I love your guys' idea, but again, it's always we have to be we have to also help give some pleasement to the regular ed teachers. So, but I can't see, there, and that's one of the big time things with them as well is, they like the idea of less screen time. So I think that this does provide that.
Well, and to start out, for the last 5 years, I've told our first grade, you can have my first hour of every day. And it's not a gifted hour, it's school-wide enrichment. And they send me a group of first graders, and it's reading comprehension through drama, basically. But then those guys come up and they always know that something else is available, those kids. And those teachers see that it works for those kids, and then they start to buy into it too. And so little by little, over time, it does work. You have to just believe, just believe that it's going to work. Because I think kids want more out of school. I think nobody likes to have their time wasted. Remember what it's like to be a kid.
Yeah.
If you had access to something else when you were a little kid, you probably would have done it. Right?
True.
It shouldn't be learning how to shout and stand in line. That shouldn't be what kids learn at school.
True.
Be that other person for kids. Be that other source of inspiration and access that general ed teachers can't do. They can't. They have too many students in their class. Yeah. There's too many deficits. But you can.
Yeah.
We can be the other.
And I think that, that is what we're trying to work on, is getting the general ed teachers to understand that we are a resource for them. We're not competing with them.
Right.
That we are there to help provide, because we do understand how difficult their classroom of 30 kids from, this level to this level is.
Right.
And, Taya, I think with you guys and Bandelier, and this may be, I may be sounding flip here, but I don't mean to be, you may just have to jump in and say, this is what we're doing, and just quit, because I know exactly what you're talking about. We heard all that. The one presentation we made, there was always a but this, a but that, but what about, and just finally say, you know, this is it. This is what we're doing, and you don't have to participate, but, you know, others of you do, and they will come around. I mean, we've heard anecdotally, even the most difficult grade levels, even the most difficult teachers eventually will say, you know, hey, would you mind, you know, telling me a little more about this? So, I mean, that's easier from me sitting here in my chair and not having to talk about, you know, talk to your teachers about it. But I think you guys are a great group over there, and I think you can do it. I know you can, because you guys are also, you're just so good. You're so talented, and you do such cool things. So,
Do you guys get the all you do is play and
oh yeah.
okay. So I think the counter to that is there's a way to be rigorous and fun. They're not mutually exclusive. And you have to teach kids to recognize and enjoy that. That doesn't it feel good to use your brain well? You know, doesn't it feel good to solve a problem instead of always the external, you're so smart. You want them, like, even while we're drawing in our nature journals, I tell them, feel how good it feels to spend that 30 minutes drawing really well. Look back and see how much you've improved just this year, drawing twice a week, you know, so that they, so that you can do rigorous stuff. You can trick kids into thinking Latin's fun and volunteering to come to that class, because it does feel good to be smart. It feels good, and they don't recognize that a lot of the time because they don't get that in general ed, I don't think.
No. And one of the big, when we started talking about school-wide enrichment last year, when we were starting up, teachers were saying, well, do we recommend people, or how does this work? And their thought was, most of them thought anyone who was interested in coming should be allowed to come. So that's how this works. And that's pretty much the consensus they came to. And so there you go. You know, they can choose to support it or not, but we're pretty much doing what they all asked for. So, you know, that.
Open it up to everybody, yeah.
Right.
So the one other thing that I feel like pressure coming on. So I think that the general ed teachers at our school have a hard time of that letting go. You know, it's always they want to hold their kids and they don't want to let their kids come see us. And that was part of the, okay, well, we'll do school-wide enrichment, but we want to do it as grade levels because they still have that control of it. They don't, it's this. And so the same thing kind of happened when we started talking about this too, where it was like, well, we do a Bandelier book club, and that's a whole school community. So can't that just count for SEM? Because everybody in the school and the community gets this book, and we do activities with the book. So it was, I didn't know how to have the conversation with those teachers about how that may or may not work.
So don't expect them to trade out anything. Just open a classroom, say this is school-wide enrichment. We're going to be studying this. And here's the code. Anybody, you know, primary, go to these hours. Intermediate, go to these hours.
Okay.
And then it's not dependent on general ed, because I have that with, you know, there's always those general ed teachers that teach their kids that only what they say is valuable and important, and they must be there for every drop of wisdom and gather it up and polish it and put it in the velvet bag. You know,
So how did you guys get your code out then when you
we
set
put
it up?
it on Dojo
Yeah.
over and over every day. Nancy
And
puts it on every week.
that's the entire school?
Yep.
Yes. The first month or 6 weeks, I drove people nuts putting stuff out. In fact, people said, "Could you just quit? We get it." But we put
I
out.
don't think we have that. We don't have that access. So
Um,
that's where I'm wondering if, if principal, would it be something that you could
Our IC
Principal
puts
has
it in our
printed it out.
newsletter too. Our IC puts it in the newsletter. Put it anywhere that goes out to parents.
Yeah. You know what Sarah did at Coronado? She had a link to her classroom on the website.
We have that too.
Yeah. So
Right.
that you could put it on your school website.
Right.
You could, do anything like that, because, the thing about if they don't have an APS email, they're not going to be able to join your class. So
Right,
you won't
right.
have, even if it's on your website, you're not going to have creepers in there because they're not going to be able to get in. So that's one way you could do it. Your newsletter that your principal sends out, for sure, you could do it.
Oh, Nancy went into classrooms at the beginning of the year and did a little sales.
Right.
And-
I came in on a morning meetings and showed him my nature journal and my colored pencils and said, "Look what I've been doing," and kind of, did a little pep talk to get kids interested. And one first grade teacher bought all her colored pencils and nature journals for the whole class, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I would say you do a lot of PR in the beginning and advertising. Now I'm fortunate enough, so if your teachers put out a weekly schedule for their kids, the link to my meetings, they've put it on there. There's a link to like PE, art, library. So my link is on there. So the kids that follow those schedules just click on there. And that makes it really easy. So the
And
teachers are pretty good about that.
I'm a teacher in all the 4th and 5th grade classrooms, so I can post on their class stream. Every Monday I go in and post my hours again and the class code. And so it's just, we try to make it really available. The information is accessible.
Because you can copy that permanent link on your classroom and just paste it, and then your teachers can copy and paste it, and it works. Our kids just click on that link right there on the banner. It makes it really easy to go to meetings. So for me, I'm kind of like in there with all the extra stuff too with the links, but I think the students are getting really good about even going, the younger ones, to different PE, me, library, whatever. So the teachers can help you do that and just say it's open to them, just like ancillary, and then if they have that link there, it makes it really easy on that weekly schedule that the parents access to.
And we tell them too, you can come and go. You can come twice a week. You can come 3 weeks and then take a week off. And that was kind of experimental to see how that would work out. And they come. It's pretty, you could do a whole master's thesis on who accesses school-wide enrichment. It's all voluntary.
Yep. And that's the key. And that, that's what happened at Coronado, is that it was voluntary, but it was during their synchronous time. So that caused all kinds of issues. It wasn't that they hated what Sarah was doing, because it was wonderful, but it was because it was during their synchronous time. And so that caused some issues. But that, once we get back in school, I don't think it's going to be as big of a problem.
Right.
Theirs was just a scheduling issue with that. So the kids will come.
Right. The other thing you can do to make the teachers feel like they're a part of it, I asked them what would be a great time. and they put their heads together. I said, now when's a good time for me to have these open meetings? And so once that's how I schedule even gifted. I say, you tell me when the kids are coming, and then they buy into it because they're the ones that had to figure it out, you know.
Yeah, well,
So
our
the
school,
hard
we really even struggled with getting enrichment back, regular enrichment for our kids
Right.
that didn't qualify in a subject area.
Right.
Because we struggle with getting schedules made for when can those come kids, because we get pushback for that even. So
Right.
they want all of our kids to come for language arts or math, and
Right.
and so it's really quite a hard thing to schedule if we were to ask. So at this point, I kind of agree with Carol that we just kind of need to do it and say, here it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And you may
Right.
start out with 5 kids, and that's great because those
Yeah.
5 kids are getting something that they weren't getting before.
And
Right.
And then those 5 kids are going to tell
Yeah.
someone else, and
Right.
it'll grow. It's not going to happen overnight. And
No.
I think Nancy and Ursula can tell you that, you know.
You have weird days. Like I'll have like tomorrow, there's times I have 28 kids show up. There's times I have 4 or 5 show up. It depends on the week, but I just keep plugging along, doing my thing. And, you know, that's pretty much how it works, but it's just little by little.
Some days they have iStation, and so very few will come because that takes so long. And I think part of what's cool about it that they like is that it's not a high pressure. If I can't make it, I have to email her and let her know situation. It's just, it's drop in, and it's nice.
Yeah. And I think the kids need that
Mm-hmm.
as much as teachers need it, you know, just there's so much pressure already, just,
Oh.
you know.
Well, and I think it's good to, I still love the idea that it's something that is still part of the school setting, but you guys focus more on that offline portion of it, because I think with the way that our world is today, everything's just go, 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 go. And I think, you know, taking the time to sit and draw is very meditative, you know, it's having that quiet time, and it helps with focus. I think so much time on the computer is making it hard for kids to focus for long periods of time on one particular task. It's like, okay, I'm ready to move on. And if I'm not doing something on the computer, then it's almost like it's like, I don't know, even with my own children, sometimes they come home from being at their grandparents doing school all day, and then they're like, can I play a video game? And I'm like, you've been on the computer all day. No, go get a board game.
Yeah.
Go with blocks. And it's like they almost have forgotten how to do that.
How to do
Right.
that.
Yeah,
How to be an active participant in your own education.
Yeah.
That's a huge, you could do your master's thesis on that. This has really revealed, we've put the onus of learning on the learner. And it's interesting who has risen to that occasion. And it wasn't predictable. Definitely, you know,
Right.
Kids I wouldn't have predicted. But I wanted to tell you too is use our slideshow, because one of the reasons we made that slideshow is to justify what we were doing to our teachers.
Okay.
And it has the list there about how drawing builds your brain, you know, and what cognitive benefit you get from this whole program in so many areas. It could be so much bigger. You could do all the number talks with and it falls right in line with Joe Bowler, you know, collecting data. It's huge. And it could be even more than what Nancy and I have built here. We're thinking we're going to open a math playground classroom and see who shows up for that.
Yeah,
So,
I wanted to, I know you guys are going to meet with Aaron Roble from Tomasita as well, and Ursula and Nancy. Aaron has created Fun Friday, and so every Friday they have 3 or 4 hours, maybe 3
Well, I
hours.
don't think she does it. It's not every Friday. I think it's like once a month. But they have it's an enrichment Friday, but they have different like different sessions, 3 or 4 different sessions
Yeah.
throughout the day
Throughout the
where
day.
different teachers host different groups, and they have everything from mindfulness to drawing different things to I mean there's STEM stuff. They have a whole bunch of different things, and then they end their day on that day with like a dance party.
Dance
It's like a
party.
whole school dance
Yeah.
party, and the PE teacher does stuff, but they get to choose from 3 or 4 things like
Yeah.
three times a day. But I think they do it. I think it's like monthly that
Monthly,
that
yeah, it
they're
could
doing
be
it.
that
Yeah,
she's doing it. But what I
yeah.
wanted to say when you were talking about the brain and the getting offline and everything, she said that she invited some person she knew that did the mindfulness class. Not a teacher at the school, but
Yeah.
that person agreed and came. And that was the most, when she did the survey afterward, that was the one that all the kids said that they loved the most was her mindfulness class.
Wow.
And so she was going to try to invite, see if the woman would come back and do it again. And it's just, it just shows you that kids are grasping for that social safeness as well. That's a terrible way to say it, but just that everything is so, just what you were saying, Taya, you're like, everything is going so fast, so fast, so fast. And just to have them be able to slow down, take a breath, no pressure, no grade, no nothing. And it's valuable. And it's hard to get that across to teachers who are just so grade focused. And it's a shame, but we can only do what we can do. So that's my little soapbox piece. Sorry, but
It's true though. I wish they wouldn't do Kahoot and all those games and stuff, because even this is better. Even though it's online, kids they come to your classes and never leave
yeah,
because they want to connect with you. They want to be with a person and each other.
mhm,
And so
I'm enjoying it. Like today, when it was time to go, some kids had a meeting, but some said, "Can we stay and draw?" And I like to draw along with them. It's been great for me. I'm keeping my own journal and I'm sharing it with them all along the way. And it saved me. I mean, we were talking about, I was like, I'm having a hard time getting this angle. And then we give each other ideas and we just relax and, work together. It's been
mhm,
great.
And
yeah,
I've had Rosie Poling come and be a guest teacher, and she taught them how to draw sandhill cranes with a grid, and it's fun. It's really fun.
yeah,
We're going to start assemblies next and have Hawks Aloft virtually, and
mhm,
the bird rescue lady here in town. But it's just the spending the time together too is what kids seem to want,
yeah,
and what they're getting from enrichment from the
right. In a relaxed atmosphere. That's not,
yes,
so, yeah,
it's not loaded.
yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
Thank you guys. My head's swimming.
Well, just take some time to process it. But anytime you have a question, we're happy to brainstorm with you or listen or
Okay.
see how we can help.
And
We're
we
still
started with less is more. That was
right.
our whole philosophy at the beginning. And it builds itself.
Mhm.
It hasn't been hard. It's invigorating, actually.
Yeah. It's actually just so much fun, it makes you love what you're doing,
Mhm.
even after 38 years for me.
jeez.
Even though you feel like you're yelling at the computer screen all day.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
I
Ursula
love
and
it.
Nancy, I really appreciate you giving up your time to
Oh,
talk to these guys. And it was great for us, at least for me, to listen
absolutely.
again to how you guys have set all this up and how it's progressed. And it's so organic.
Yeah.
That's what the other joy of school-wide enrichment, any kind of situation is. It's just constantly changing because there aren't those standards. There's not a boxed curriculum. it's just what works for this group may not work for that group. So let's just continue to build or,
Yes.
change. So
You can follow kids.
yeah,
Right.
right.
Like the other day, somebody brought a huge turkey feather and said, check this out. So I threw away what I was going to do, and we worked with the turkey feather. Or I find a dead lizard in my yard. You never know. It just
Yeah.
leads to a lot. There you go.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
expands. So
No, what an inspiring discussion. It reminded me of a quote that I heard recently that the opposite of play is not work, it's depression. And that
yeah,
kids really need to engage in this way, so
exactly.
yeah.
It's really constructive play. It
Yeah.
really is. And they don't get enough of that. Look at kindergarten now,
Oh, I know. Ugh.
right?
Yeah.
So they don't know how.
Mhm.
So they're in trouble all the time because they don't know how to play constructively or
Right.
without being online.
Right.
I-
They have to all be muted and sit there now for a whole morning.
I know. You watch your own kids. And my own 6th grade daughter, it's sad. 3 hours of just staring at a
Yeah, staring at a screen. Yeah.
I had a little kinder this morning because we still do the small SEM pullouts, and so my activity was for them to go get 10 rocks, and then they were going to sort the rocks and talk about the different ways that they sort. Like, why did you put this rock with this group, and what are the characteristics of all those rocks in that group, and why is this rock with that group, and and so they could talk about the different ways that they sorted it. And I spaced on one of my valuable words. Anyway, so they were going to go do that. Well, one of the kindergarten kiddos, they had her and her adult had looked at the assignment the night before. So she came to class ready with her bag of rock collections, the really polished ones and pretty ones. And I said, oh, those are really wonderful. And she was so excited. She was showing them to me. And I said, okay, guys. And once we started the class, we're going, I said, okay, now is the time that you get to go outside and collect your 10 rocks and bring them back. And we're going to talk about them. And the little girl who had brought her own rock collection got so upset and broke into tears because she couldn't go outside and get her own rocks because her adult was very worried about the weather and not having the proper clothing on to do it. It was just total fall apart. And I was like, oh, this poor dear child. And I was like, no, it's okay. I was like, you've already found your rocks. Tell me again about your rocks. And you don't have to go outside to find them. You haven't. Oh, but I need to go outside and find more. And it was. And it's that reminder of how hard it is for these little ones where they don't have that, like you say, constructive play and that, function. And then when something changes, it's just, fall apart.
Yeah.
So.
Well, this was really cool, you guys, and I appreciate all of you being here, and it helps us grow as well. It helps us learn and help other people. So, what a great collaboration, and I hope that you guys can keep it up.
Yes, thank you so much for doing this. This helps so much. So I really appreciate Carol, and Jennifer and Thomas, all you guys just always being there and willing to reach out to other teachers throughout the district to help give us ideas and feedback. Because I know I'm sure Carol's there's an email from Taya again. I need help.
Never. I'm always glad to hear from you, Taya. You know that.
No, I really appreciate it, and I know how hard you guys also work on your end, and you're servicing all of us teachers throughout the district, and there's only 3 of you, so I'm sure it does feel like your own SEM program school-wide kind of
thing. It's never a dull moment, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, you guys all have a great night.
Yes, thank you guys so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for all you do. Hope to talk soon.
Our slideshow is on our website.